Stortz with DonorPerfect. Very excited, very happy to be here today for our expert webcast, how to communicate with supporters before, during, and after a fundraising event. Before we get started and dive into the introductions, I just want to go over a couple of housekeeping items for how you can participate today. First, the webinar is being recorded. We will send out the recording and the presentation slides in the next day or two once we get those all set up, so keep an eye out for that. And I also want to let you know about the question box on your GoToWebinar panel. If you have any questions throughout the webinar, feel free to submit them there. We'll do our best to either answer them as they come in or try and address them at the end. We've left some time for questions. Next, we have the Raise Your Hand panel. So assuming you can hear me, please click the Raise Your Hand button just to let you know that the audio is all coming through well and good, if you could. All right, so we look like we're all set there. Next, as far as if you're having any technical trouble with GoToMeeting, you can always contact Citrix at the help number there. And also, if you're having any audio or visual trouble with that, you can also submit that in the question box too, and I'll do my best to address any questions that I can help out with. And then last, our webinar schedule. We have another couple minutes. I just want to introduce myself, DonorPerfect, Constant Contact, our partner, and our presenter, John Haydon. And then John will jump into the presentation, and we have about 10 minutes at the end to go over questions. So moving forward, so as we said, this is how to communicate with your supporters before, during, and after a fundraising event. Today, your hosts are myself. As I said, I'm Sam Stortz with DonorPerfect, and I'm being joined by Ryan Tartaglia with Constant Contact. We partnered with Constant Contact and Ryan and then our presenter, John, to bring you this presentation, and we're really excited for it. This webinar actually broke the record, the DonorPerfect record for most registrants. We have over 1,500 people who signed up, so clearly this topic hits home for a lot of you, and you know we're excited to give this to you. So first, to go over a little bit about DonorPerfect. So DonorPerfect fundraising growth platform. Basically, we are a nonprofit donor management system, complete solution for donor management, completely customizable to the needs of almost every nonprofit organization, and it's built to manage your donor data as well as help you raise more money for your mission. We're a complete donor management platform, so we handle your events management, online donation forms, any communications you have with donors, as well as all the fundraising, analytics, and reporting that may come with it. And we manage that all in one spot, so you can really focus on what's important for your mission. And of course, one of our most popular features is our tight integration with Constant Contact. So you can take advantage of the best-in-class email as a core element of your donor engagement strategy. So with that, I'm going to hand it over to our other host today, Ryan Tartaglia from Constant Contact, to tell you a little bit more about them.
Thanks, Sam. As Sam mentioned, I'm Ryan Tartaglia, and I've worked at Constant Contact for 3 years, and I've actually been worked closely with the DonorPerfect partnership for that duration. DonorPerfect and Constant Contact, though, have actually been partners for 14 years. And as Sam mentioned, what makes this partnership special is DonorPerfect's enhanced integration with Constant Contact, so that way you're able to manage communications more efficiently and automatically by providing a seamless list management and sync of campaign results within your DonorPerfect platform. So, but before I get to our special guest speaker, John Haydon, I want to tell you a little bit more about who Constant Contact is. Let me get a show of hands to see if everyone is familiar with Constant Contact. Let's get a show of hands just to see who is and who isn't familiar with Constant Contact. Great, a lot of you do, but for those of you who don't know, Constant Contact is a powerful email marketing tool made easy along with our world-class support and education. We really wrote the book on email marketing, and we're known for being trustworthy and reputable. We're fully compliant with all email laws, including canned spam, which is one reason why we can ensure your email gets delivered to your inbox and to your constituents' inboxes. Constant Contact has the highest deliverability rate at 98%, which means the emails you send will be seen and will help you make sure they're opened and read by your audience. So, bottom line, we've really developed a #1 ranked email marketing tool and nonprofit support and staff that is outstanding because we believe our success is your success. So with that, I'm very excited to bring in our special guest speaker, John Haydon. John Haydon is an incredible digital marketing expert exclusively for nonprofits and charities. He has helped hundreds of nonprofits realizing their best marketing and fundraising results. John helps nonprofits, charities, and community foundations get more from their digital investments with strategic coaching, consulting, and training. Plus, a little fun fact, he is the author of Facebook Marketing for Dummies and Facebook Marketing All-in-One. So with that, I'll pass it on to John. Good afternoon, John.
Good afternoon, Ryan. Thank you so much. And thank you, Sam, as well, for having the most successful DonorPerfect webinar in terms of registrants. That's great. Congratulations. And most importantly, thank you to everyone who's attending right now. You know, you're working at a nonprofit, you're doing really great hard work, at doing good work, changing the world in really meaningful ways, and you're taking time out of your schedule today to participate. So I'm going to make it worth your time. Today we're going to talk about crafting a compelling pitch for your fundraising campaign. And again, the whole goal of this is to figure out, you know, how are we going to communicate with supporters before, during, and after a fundraising campaign? We have to get their attention, keep them interested, and encourage them to take action. So this all starts with crafting a compelling pitch. We're going to also talk about identifying and segmenting your audience, which is absolutely critical, and then driving fundraising event registration, identifying the best times to send donation emails, and then how to retain more donors with email. Actually, if you know, if you're familiar with the nonprofit sector, which I'm sure you are because you work in a nonprofit, but retention is really the biggest struggle for nonprofits. And you know, so retention, in my experience, is actually what organizations have to focus on. Is once you get that donor, how do you keep them coming back? So let's jump right in. The first topic is crafting a compelling pitch for your organization or for your event or for your fundraising campaign. And the reason why I always like to start here is because most nonprofit communicators, you know, you who's listening right now, you're what is often called an accidental marketer. You know, you're kind of in this profession, you're in this job by way of some other career path, a kind of a winding career path, and your experience may not have a lot of kind of marketing or sales kind of background. My background, I've been working with nonprofits since 2009, and my background previous to that was mostly working for profit, software companies, healthcare companies, media companies, print companies, and doing either sales or marketing. So my entire career, most of it, is actually working pretty heavily in for-profit, which is where you have the strongest marketers, in my opinion. Your pitch has got to cut through the noise. That's what you have to do. You have several things to deal with today, and we could look at this background picture here. We see people all looking at their cell phones, right? If you've seen the movie Wall-E, it's the same idea, right? Everybody's always connected. So you have to deal with noise, lots of distraction and just gunk in the Facebook news feed. And it's just, you know, it's distractions. There's a lack of attention as well. So a human being officially now has a shorter attention span than the goldfish, okay? Goldfish has an attention span of 8 seconds, which seems like an eternity compared to what a human being is now capable of. And not to mention that, but we now have competition. So there are other organizations that are competing for your donors' dollars, okay, for the same people. Not only direct quote unquote competitors, similar nonprofit space, but also for-profits, retailers and so forth that are also competing for the same dollars. All right, so that's why we have to craft a pitch that's really going to get people's attention and get them to take action. Okay. Now this all starts with finding out what's important to your supporters, right? And here's one of my favorite ways of figuring this out is simply to ask. Ask your donors what's important to them. There are several ways to do this. One is with social media, using Facebook, using Twitter, finding out what people are talking about. Your email metrics, of course. If you use Constant Contact, you know that you can go into your reporting and you could look at which emails are people reading, which articles in our email newsletter are they clicking on, what's getting the most traction, right? So you can learn about your supporters in a number of different ways. One of my favorite ways is, of course, with a survey. Now, this is a survey example from Sandy Hook Promise, which is actually located in Newtown, Connecticut, and we're all familiar with the story of the Sandy Hook shooting in Newtown, Connecticut. So there's this organization, Sandy Hook Promise, right? They ask the most important survey question that all nonprofits should ask their donors, and that is, what first got you involved in Sandy Hook Promise, right? So in other words, you want to ask your donor, what made you decide to make that first gift? What was it that made you decide to give that first donation, okay? And they can tell, they're going to tell you, okay? I was moved by the family. I like that Sandy Hook Promise doesn't just focus on the gun, but the reason someone might pick up a gun. Or a friend told me about Sandy Hook Promise. So we're learning about our audience. The other thing they ask is, which areas of Sandy Hook Promise are you most interested in? Helping parents, promoting mental health, training people to recognize and respond to warning signs about violence, right? So now with their follow-up campaigns, they can target their messages much more precisely. So they can send out an email that says, hey, we know you're interested in helping parents and community members create change where they live. Here's how you can do that. It's going to speak much more directly to that person's interest. So learning about our supporters is absolutely key. Let's go to the next slide. So another one, another important survey question. How likely are you to recommend Sandy Hook Promise to a friend, family member, or colleague, right? So how satisfied, how much of a fan are you, right? And then the question that you never want to ask in a survey is, have you ever given us money? How much have you donated? When have you donated? Never ask this question. It will get you in some pretty serious trouble, which is kind of obvious. You should know this information. You should not be asking your donors this, okay? Very dangerous question to ask. So what makes a compelling pitch? Once we understand our audience, and there's obviously a lot more that goes into that, but I've covered kind of social media, email, and doing surveys. But what makes a pitch compelling? What makes it stand out? There are really 4 elements of a compelling pitch that you're going to craft for your upcoming fundraising event or your upcoming walkathon. There's the story, there's contrast, differentiating our message from others, and then there's answering what's in it for me. There's also urgency, which is critical. So the story is probably the most important thing. And again, I've worked with hundreds of nonprofits. I have to say that the main differentiator, the thing that really makes things work really well for any campaign, is the story. Nonprofits as a whole, I shouldn't say as a whole, but they struggle with this. If you're like most nonprofits, you do some kind of common mistakes. A common mistake is to put yourself, your organization, as the hero. That's a very big mistake. So in other words, the narrative is like this: give money to us, and we, the great nonprofit who's been around for 100 years, and we're so awesome, we will change the world on your behalf. That is a story that really takes the wind out of the sail. It just doesn't work. A better narrative is this: you are the person that's going to change the situation. So a story, fundamentally, every single story on the planet has 3 elements: person, the hook. For example, this woman on the right, this is a story about her, and she's really struggling. She has dreams and goals. She's just like you. But now we introduce a problem. She had dreams for the future until her community was devastated by, poverty, whatever kind of situation she's dealing with, right? So as soon as a donor sees that there's a problem, they want to solve the problem. They want to be the hero. So this is a great example, actually, from my outreach that very clearly explains that you want to connect the donor with the impact. You don't want to say, donor, give us money, the organization. In other words, remove your organization from the narrative, right? So I am changing this person's life. I'm making this impact. This is ultimately why people give. They want to feel like they're having a direct impact. They're not interested in, being generous. They don't give because they're generous. They don't give because they think your nonprofit is awesome. They give because they think they are awesome and they want to fulfill that, the role that they want to aspire to as a hero in the story, okay? So be really clear about that, The other thing about a story is that you only need a story of one person. That's really the best kind of story, is about one person, not a family, not a community, not a country, and certainly not statistics. If you lead with statistics, you are going to bum people out. People do not respond to statistics, but they do respond to a little girl who's hungry, and you can help this little girl. That's much more of a motivator than there are 3 million hungry children in this African country. Do you want to give $10? No, I don't want to give $10 because it's kind of impossible. I'm not going to be able to solve this problem. It's way too big for me, but I'm going to help this girl. Okay, so that's the story. The second element is contrast. So I'm going to tell you a quick little story here. I was working with an organization, the Ellie Fund. And during Breast Cancer Awareness Month, this is actually a couple of years ago, there was also a fundraising contest, different organizations competing with each other to see who could raise the most money and also get the most new donors, right? And so this organization said, hey, we want to enter this contest. They're relatively new, small organization and have very little experience in terms of fundraising or marketing. And so I sat down with them and I said, great, sounds great. The prize money, by the way, for the contest was, I believe, about $20,000. So I sat down with them and I said, hey, what's your pitch? What's the story here that we're going to go with? And they said, oh, well, it's Breast Cancer Awareness Month and X% of women have breast cancer. And, of course, it's so important, right? And, and I said, well, that's not so interesting to me. I'm sorry. And then they said, well, how about this? If we win, we get $20,000 and that will help all of our great work that we're doing. And I said, well, I hate to burst your bubble, but you're not going to win this fundraising contest, okay? You can't lead with that. People are not going to give you money based on some remote chance that you're actually going to win this contest because, let's face it, you're just starting out, you're new. There's chances are you're not going to win. I don't want to be a downer, but it's not going to happen. And then so we brainstormed a little bit and I said, we got to talk about something that's really nobody else is talking about. It's really different. It's going to hook people in, get their attention. And so we came up with this idea. Let's talk about the unsung heroes in breast cancer, which are the kids that have to step up their game, do more chores, cook more meals, and have a happy face and really have courage to deal with their mom, who's now struggling with breast cancer, right? So these are the unsung heroes. So we actually collected, 2 or 3 different stories of children. This is a picture of some twins that were on video talking about the things that they do to help mom out. And this really cut through the noise so much that they actually came in 3rd place in this fundraising contest. It was pretty remarkable. It got so much attention, they got so many fans, and it was so many fans, so many donations, new donors, and so forth. And it was precisely because we took a different angle. It was contrast. All the other breast cancer organizations are talking about statistics, pink ribbons, and women who have breast cancer. We're not going to do that. We're going to talk about the kids, the unsung heroes. All right. So contrast is this idea of differentiating yourself from what everyone else is saying. If you're a breast cancer organization and you want to be invisible during October, Breast Cancer Awareness Month, which you don't want to be invisible, the best way to be invisible is to say, we got a pink ribbon. Everybody's got a pink ribbon, okay? Everybody's got the pink bagels. You know, come on. You've got to come up with some sort of contrast that's really going to get people's attention and differentiate you. The third element of a compelling pitch is what's in it for me. Ultimately, you have to answer the real questions behind why someone is going to participate in your event. And the answers are a little surprising sometimes, but it's always about me, okay? So people give and they support causes so that they can feel good about themselves and so that they can have some sort of sense of meaning. I'm living a meaningful life. That's why people give, and that's basically the essence of it. But you also want to think about like, well, hey, our audience, they're younger people. You know, maybe we can promote some kind of angle about like, well, you're going to meet other cool people just like you at this event. You are going to look like a hero by coming to this event. And that, you know, again, that's why people support nonprofits. They want to be the hero. They want to look a certain way to their friends. I hate to say it so kind of straightforward, but this is the truth. You know, people want to look a certain way. I'm generous. I care about animals. Yes, they do. But they certainly want to make sure that their friends know about that. Let me tell you that right now, right? So always think, what's in it for me, right? The last part is a sense of urgency for your campaign. And the reason why is because you can have an incredible story that's so moving. You can have contrast, and you can even answer what's in it for me. But if you don't answer why now, then you know you've got a problem. So a couple of ways to deal with the urgency issue. One is to have a matching gift that's limited. You know, we have a matching, an anonymous donor came forward and they have a matching gift. They're going to match your donation dollar for dollar, but for a limited time. Don't wait. Do this now. You'll have a greater impact. Your impact will be doubled if you do it now, but don't wait. Okay? That's the matching gift type of pitch. Another one is if you're doing a walkathon or some kind of physical event, rather than telling people what they're going to get if they go to the event, you want to stress, instead of emphasizing what they're going to get, the benefits of going to this event or participating, you want to stress what they're going to miss if they don't go to this event. And this triggers a loss aversion, which all human beings have. We are hardwired to avoid loss more so than we are hardwired to seek gain and pleasure and benefit. So always talk about don't miss out. Register now. There are limited seats, you know, grab your spot, right? This sense of urgency. And you can even use the word now, right? So in other words, let's say your pitch is, you know, feed hungry children or give clean water. That's your call to action. You know, that's great, but why not say feed hungry children now? These kids can't wait. Don't let them wait. That sense of urgency is going to be really critical in your pitch, okay? So let's shift gears a little bit and we're going to talk about your email subject line, okay? Your subject line has one job, and that job, of course, is to have people open the email. A common mistake I see with email subject lines is that nonprofits, you know, feel like they have to, you know, include all the important information in the subject line, including the date of the fundraiser, or maybe even the location of the event and where it's going to be, right? That information is not really going to help people open the email. It will help them decide that they can delete the email because they're not available on that date, but we want them to open the email. So we want to create some sort of curiosity, you know? So some factors that influence open rate, these are the major factors. One is recency to offline interaction. Recency to online interaction is another one, but offline interaction. So I always tell my clients, Every time you have an event, a physical event, always send an email the day after with the subject line, by the way, here's a good subject line, pictures from last night, right? Who doesn't want to see a picture of themselves? They're going to open that email. And of course, in that email, you're going to tell them the great stuff that happened and, you know, check out your pictures. And most importantly, here's what's happening next. You know, stay connected. Sign up, register for our next event. Find out how you can help out as a volunteer. Recency to online interaction as well. If someone's recently visited your website or recently made a donation, recently signed up as a volunteer, the email that you send them after that with their thank you for donating, thank you for volunteering, those sort of emails are going to have a huge open rate compared to your email newsletter, for example. Okay, recognition of the sender. You know, we can always change the sender name in an email. It could be the name of your organization, which might work for, say, a newsletter. But for a fundraising ask, you can, you know, experiment with that a little bit and maybe have the email come from the executive director. You're just simply changing the sender name. The email is the same. The email address is the same, but you're changing the recognition of the sender. So people tend to open emails from people that they like, know, and trust. So if you have an executive director, development director, or even a spokesperson who's pretty popular, you can switch out those sender names. I listen to WBUR, a local radio station, nonprofit radio station, and they're always switching up, you know, their sender names with these popular, well-known, you know, radio hosts, you know, Deborah Biebinger, you know, and Tom Ashbrook, and all these other people are sending me emails. Oh, I love Tom. I love his show. I'm going to open his email. The subject line is also important. And then relevance, you know, how relevant is the message to the person, okay? Now the message, once you get the message open, the email message has one job, and that is, again, to click and visit the website, okay? So for your fund, if you want people to register for your event, if you want them to visit your website, if you want them to make that online donation, you want them to, you have to ask them, okay? So I always like to think about the perfect email message in terms of a fundraising email. There are really 3 elements in an email message. And I'm talking specifically about a fundraising email or a fundraising event or registering for an event. There's the people or the person, problem, and the payoff, okay? So the first thing is, you know, you get people, you hook them in with that person. Oh, this is a story about a family or a father and his family. But, you know, the problem is that they have struggled. They have a struggle in their life, you know, but you, Mr. or Mrs. Donor, you can be the hero and change this situation. You can change their life. You can give twice the hope. That's the payoff. The payoff is what the donor wants. I want to solve this problem, okay? And there's actually a lot of research around this. There's a chemical process that happens in the brain when someone is presented with a person, a cute little girl who wants to be an astronaut, and she's so happy and has all these dreams and goals. But she is struggling in school because she's hungry. She can't eat. She does not have enough to eat, and her family is very poor. That's a problem, right? As soon as we are hooked in with that person and we're introduced with a problem, we are hardwired to want to solve that problem, and the 2 chemicals, oxytocin and cortisol, kick in. Empathy and a feeling of focused attention. I want to solve this problem, and I care about this little girl. These feelings encourage giving. These are called, I call them fundraising chemicals. Now, with your story, your pitch, you want to make sure that you're telling your story across all of your channels, not just Facebook, not just email, not just direct mail, but all of your channels, and you're telling the story across all channels, right? So just a pitch about, you know, multi-channel marketing. So let's talk about identifying and segmenting your audience. The first question sometimes I get is, we have an email list, we have a list of donors, but why should we segment our list? Why is that important? And the reason why is because you have many different types of people that are connected to your organization. In this situation, we can say that our nonprofit is like a restaurant, right? You have people that are regulars, they show up all the time, people that came to the restaurant because their friend invited them, and so forth. So in your own database, you have different sort of people that support you, different relationships. The better we can identify their relationship, the more likely, and follow up with corresponding relevant communication, the more likely we're going to keep them interested, get them to take action. So we have donors, volunteers, advocates, marginal interests. That's one of my favorites. Oh, I'm on your email list because a friend made me attend one of your events, and I went because they're my friend, but honestly, I'm not so interested in the cause. Thank you very much. So you have marginal interest, okay? Newsletter subscribers and so forth, all right? Now, to take this a step further, all donors are not equal, okay? First-time donors, great. You get that first-time gift. But if you get a second donation from that same person, sometimes it feels like a miracle. Wow, they came back again. They give us money a second time. It's amazing, right? So that second person who gives a second gift is very different from first-time donor. My favorite example is disaster type of fundraising, right? We have a massive tsunami, wipes out a big village. And of course, we see all the ads and emails and text messages from Red Cross saying, you can help now, right? And of course, they get lots of new donors, right? But how many of those people come back again and give a second gift to the Red Cross? Very few, right? So that's, first-time donors, great. Second-time donor has crossed a critical threshold. And monthly donor is absolutely important. Major donors are different, obviously. They're more interested in the longer-term success, the bigger commitment to the organization and the cause. People gave over a year ago, they kind of fell off the map and so forth, right? So all donors are not equal. And this is precisely why we want to segment both in your database, your donor database, like DonorPerfect, or Constant Contact, well, preferably both, right? And you can segment. You don't want to segment. A common mistake I see is that people sometimes think, oh, we're going to segment based on, oh, they're in the zip code. That means that they're the rich people in this zip code. I live in Cambridge, Massachusetts. It's a town a few miles away. Newton, Massachusetts. Wellesley. Lots of rich people, right? Oh, they live in Wellesley. They must have money. No, the best way to segment people is based on their own interests, their own participation, their own actions. So that first-time donor, we want to segment them. That returning donor, this is a person who gave twice. We're going to treat them different. Monthly donors, major donor, and so forth. Now, one of my favorite, there's several different ways to segment actually in email marketing tools, but one of my favorite ways is tagging. So rather than putting people on a separate list, like a whole list of first-time donors, a list of returning donors, and a list of monthly donors, and so forth, the problem with that is you might have some kind of overlap. Maybe, well, let's use an example of a volunteer and a donor. They've been a volunteer and a donor. Why should they be on two email lists? We don't want to kind of double our efforts or send them, two messages by mistake, okay? So tagging is a little bit better because then you can assign multiple tags to an individual contact and more, send the right message to the right person at the right time, be a little bit more wise about who you're targeting. And then let your supporters choose too. That's another way to segment your audience is let them choose how often they want to receive emails. Let them choose what types of emails they want to receive and also what topics they're interested in. That survey question earlier from Sandy Hook Promise, what aspect of our cause are you interested in? Parents, or these other issues, right? So that's the topic that they're interested in. And of course, we're going to follow up with them, stressing or emphasizing those topics over others. You also want to target highly relevant subscribers with timely marketing campaigns. And this is really the kind of the brilliance of segmentation, is that now by segmenting, we're able to identify people and also deliver very kind of personalized information to them. And this is really, I think, the real cornerstone and power of email marketing. So here's an email I get from Donors Choose. It says, "We need you in Allston, Massachusetts." Wow, that's like right around the corner from my house. Okay, great. "Hi, John," first name, and then there's a local classroom that needs your help. There's a picture of it, and here's the city, right? So you've got my attention because this message is very, very relevant to who I am, where I live, and what I'm interested in. Okay, so that's really the value of segmenting, okay? And then you want to use automated messages to communicate in a timely manner. So basically, when someone does take action, like registering for an event, you want to follow up immediately with you know, an email. You could call this a trigger. It's often referred to as a trigger. Someone, you know, registers for an event, and then automatically they're going to start receiving a few emails that are related to that event, okay? So just to take this a step further, this is just an example. Day one, a message goes out automatically. And you could do this with Constant Contact, by the way. Brilliant solution. Day one, message one. "Thank you for registering for our event. Invite your friends." Okay? Sure, we want people who registered immediately. We want them to share it with their friends. We have to strike while the iron's hot. The iron is hot. Day three, you know, 2 days later, here's some event news, some new stuff that's happening about this event. You know, we didn't tell you this before, but it's brand new, a new edition, new speaker, new information about this event. Please share. We want to emphasize sharing this event. In other words, in this campaign, the goal is to turn event registrants into spokespeople, right? And there might be another message a couple of days later. Here's some other ways you can help us out at the event, right? Or learn more and share, more sharing about that event. And as I said before, the day after the event, send an email following up immediately after that event and say, "Hey, you know, again, check out the pictures, but also here's what's happening next." You know, if you're not following us on Facebook, connect with us there so you can find out about future stuff. Join our newsletter if you're not on our newsletter, and so forth, right? So let's talk about driving fundraising event registrants, you know, getting them to actually go to your fundraising page and register for that event, okay? So what motivates people to attend fundraising events? What you want to do is, rather than, you know, again, a common mistake I see is, oh, we want to reach people and promote our fundraising events. So let's see, wow, there are, what, 1.9 billion people on Facebook. Man, if only 0.00001% of those people register for our event, we're going to be great, you know? So in other words, like, the thinking is, let's try and convince total strangers to register for our event. But what I say is, no, you want to preach to the choir. You want to really target people that already like, know, and trust you. If they like, know, and trust you, you've covered a lot of ground with them already. You have a lot of credibility, and they are going to be highly likely to register for that event. Of course, they love the cause, they love the community, they might love the activity. So we kind of have to figure out what aspect of our event are they interested in. They might love the sponsor. I love the sponsor who's promoting this event. I love this cause, I'm so passionate. I love the people, I love to meet these people, right? So finding out that angle, right? But I always say, you know, when you want to launch your fundraising event or your campaign or walkathon or whatever it is, always start with the people in your database. We want to have them register first so that now we're turning them into spokespeople, as I said before. That's the core audience. We always want to treat those people with the most, you know, the most love, so to speak. Now, here's a little chart. Actually, you can print this out, put it on your cubicle wall. And these are literally the things you can do before, during, and after an event. So I'm not going to read all of this here for the purpose of time, but 3 months before your event, you want to set up your mobile-friendly event page. You want to start crafting that story that's really going to get people's attention, that story about one person and that problem that they encountered and how the donor is going to solve that problem. You want to start writing your email drip campaigns, your messages, your autoresponders, so that when someone does register, they're going to receive a series of emails. Ambassadors, you want to start getting those people together. Obviously, you want to set up Google Analytics as well, so you can track everything going forward. And then about a month before the event, you want to drive traffic, start promoting this, okay? With direct mail, with email. You want to start engaging the community with stories. And then the week before, you want to remind people. Again, at these times, you could say 2 weeks before, remind people. The point is that, to have a phase where you're setting things up, you're promoting it or announcing you're a big event, you're reminding people maybe a few times. And by the way, reminding isn't just saying, hey, we have an event, we have an event, we have an event, and just repeating yourself over and over again. No, you have to be creative and think, what can we share that's interesting? So for example, let's say you have a silent auction at your big fundraising event. And as part of your silent auction, you have some really strange things that people have donated. For example, a lava lamp. Why not take a picture of the lava lamp, share it on your Facebook page and say, hey, who's ever seen one of these things? Can you guess what it is? By the way, it's in our silent auction. If you haven't registered yet, click this link and register, right? So basically you're coming up with creative excuses that are about the supporter, what's in it for me, that keeps them engaged, reminding them about the event. And then of course on the big day, you want to really focus on the people that attend that event and really give them an incredible experience. The day after, thank you. Send out event pictures, send out that email blast, thank people by phone and postcard. In fact, in the interest of donor retention, I'm just going to say that, and this doesn't apply to a fundraising event, but if you call a person who makes a donation, you pick up the phone and you call them and say, thank you so much for your gift. It really means a lot, and you're really changing some lives. We just want to say thank you very quickly, and thank you for your time. Click. That's it. That actually increases the lifetime value. It more than doubles the lifetime value of the donor, and also doubles the likelihood that they'll give again, right? So this is just kind of money in the bank, waiting to be cashed in, so to speak. And then also, you always want to tell people what's next. Whatever's going on, you want to tell them what's next. Because as I said before, if you use a cliche, you want to strike while the iron's hot. You are on their mind for a very limited time, So you want to follow up and say, hey, here's what's next. Don't forget, sign up for this. Here's what's happening, and here's what you can do next, okay? Because people will want to know. The problem that I see is a lot of organizations, they stop at inspire. The big day happens and the big day is done and there's total radio silence. People that attended the event are wondering, what happened? Were the pictures? I don't know. It was fun, but what's up now? They're kind of left hanging. Don't leave people hanging. Always follow up the day after and always say thank you. The two most important words in fundraising, the first one is you, Y-O-U. The second one is thank you. Those are the two most important words in fundraising. Now, along with this, actually, so text is very powerful. In fact, Ryan and Sam and I were talking before this webinar, and I don't know if you guys follow, I subscribe to Human Rights Campaign, Red Cross, and a few others by text messaging. And whenever I get a text message, I definitely look at it, and it's always interesting. I often take action on it. And I have a 13-year-old, always texting. 90% of texts are read within the first 3 minutes of receiving it. text messages have a 98% open rate, not surprising at all. That's obviously a lot higher than email. And most adults use text. Okay, so how can we use texting as well to promote your event before, during, and after? So you can send out a teaser, obviously, kind of reminding people, announcing our big event is just around the corner. Keep an eye out for your registration email. In fact, in the text, you can even have a link that says register now. Reminders, can't wait to see you tomorrow night. Don't forget, that sort of thing before the event. During the event, you can encourage people to text to donate during the event, and yes, they will do it. The thing I love about events, a physical event, is that in a sense, you have a captured audience. There are two things. One is they signed up for the event. They've actually said, they've given you, what, 3, 4, 5, 6 hours of their time to be at your event. Time is worth a lot more than money. If they physically show up at your event, it's a huge statement. They are seriously interested, and they want you to tell them what to do. So you tell them at the event, here's what we're going to do, guys. Donate now. You can coordinate with a speaker's appeal, actually, and I've seen this done so many ways. It's so great, especially if you have someone sharing, someone who benefits from the work, right? Maybe someone who is formerly homeless, maybe someone who overcame cancer, and they're speaking. They are one of the big speakers. And during that, you can send out a call, donate now. Another one, silent auction is closing in 10 minutes. Don't miss a chance to get that lava lamp. And then after an event, collecting feedback. What did you think about this event? Sharing photos through a link to an online photo gallery, which of course is going to be on Facebook as a photo album. So sending people there, building up that engagement, getting them to tell their friends about you, of course, on Facebook is always really important, right? So before, during, and after an event, don't forget about text is absolutely critical, right? So now, next topic, how to identify the best times to send donation emails. This is a question I get all the time, and you're going to be very disappointed in my answer because you're probably expecting me to say something like Thursday at 2 o'clock, and then you can run back to your office and, Thursday at 2, let's send an email Thursday at 2. But unfortunately, it's not going to work that way, okay? So here's why. Most nonprofits are doing blasting. We're all very familiar with the term email blast, okay? We just blast the list, okay? The good news about this is that it's easy to send. It's a great way to quickly reach all people, promote an event. It lets you measure engagement in a sense. So for example, with a newsletter, you can send out that newsletter, blast to all your newsletter subscribers, and then look at, well, are they opening it? Are they clicking on it, to stay top of mind? It also lets you segment subscribers, the openers versus the people who are unsubscribing or not opening your emails. So it's a good way to kind of segment as well. So that's great, right? But unfortunately, the bad part of blasting your list is that it is really an interruption. You are sending this email at a time when it works for you and your organization, but it's often an interruption to people. You're essentially you're expecting to kind of have them, oh, okay, I need to think about this now. I need to open this email. Engagement rates are often low. So for example, email newsletter open rates might be, say, 15, 25%. I don't know what the industry standards are. There's a blog post out there. There are probably hundreds of blog posts, about what's a good email newsletter open rate. It's generally between, 15, 25%. And you can also, it's also competing calls to action if you're sending out email blasts, right? Because you might not have a list that actually segmented really well. So you're sending an email that says, hey, can you just give us $10? We're trying to reach our goal. And unfortunately, that's received by a major donor who says, hey, I'm happy to give you $10. It'll save me the effort of writing out this $1,000 check. And I could just give you $10 online. That's great, okay? So what I'm really talking about here is basically setting up triggered emails. This is really the gold part of email. Triggered emails have a much higher open rate. So for example, someone registers for your event. They receive an email that says, the subject line is event registration receipt, something like that. Wow, that's an important email. I've got to save it. I've got to look at it. I've got to at least open it. Those are going to have a higher open rate, a much higher open rate than an email newsletter. When they donate, you should immediately send an email. You automatically send them that says, thank you. You just did something amazing. Thank you so much. That's the email, okay? So the benefits of these triggered emails that I'm talking about is that they're timely, you know, you're striking when the iron is hot. They're relevant. I just made a donation. I'm being thanked for my donation. And it also invites more action. You're repeatedly asking them to take action. The example I shared earlier, register for the event, you know, thank you for registering. Second email, here's some really cool stuff, share with your friends. And a third email, you know, share this event with your friends. There's this automated way, kind of set it and forget it, of sending an email. People get it, they react to it, and we're touching them more often than not because they have initiated this process. That's the real key with triggered emails, that they, the subscriber or the donor or the volunteer, have initiated the contact. So that's why they're going to open these emails. They're going to read them. They're going to click on them. The engagement rates are going to be a lot higher. Some types of series, basically donor onboarding emails, you know, a brand new donor, here's what we're about, thank you, and so forth. A follow-up series, following up an event. Action triggers, so sign this petition. We have to end the dog meat trade. Sign this petition. An email is automatically sent, and you know, you could say, thanks for signing this petition. You can also support with a small donation right now. That email is going to get a lot of donations guaranteed because they've automatically, it's on their timeline, it's on their interest, and they've basically they've segmented. They've said, hey, I'm interested in this issue. I signed a petition. So yes, you can definitely ask me for money. And then a retention series as well, retaining donors. So let's switch gears a little bit, and we're going to talk about lowering unsubscribes using opt-out messaging, okay? So what I often recommend, especially with a newsletter, is that we get people's permission to send them emails. So we've all seen this sort of message. You know, hey, thanks for joining our list. Please confirm that you are a real human being. Please confirm your subscription to our church by clicking on the link below. All this does is this confirms that the person joining your list is the same person that, the person that wants to join your list is the same person that entered the email. This is very different from a kind of bad practice that I often see, which is, well, let's just add all of our friends to our email list without even telling them. Or that well-intended, you know, the Aunt Martha with the great intention who loves the animal shelter, and Aunt Martha is just adding all of her extended relatives to the email list. You know, if we do that and we're accepting that, we're going to have an email list that's very, very bad quality. We always want to get people's permission. This is more so with email newsletters, okay? So tips for reducing opt-outs. Definitely send that confirmation in terms of joining your email message. Here's an example from me. I send an email in the subject line, this is your super boring confirmation email. John here, you're receiving this email because you entered your email address on my website. Before I can send you stuff, I need you to click the link below to confirm that you're a real human being. I mean, people understand that. And I'm building up a list of quality email subscribers with this approach, okay? And again, timing is everything in terms of lowering unsubscribes. Always make sure you're sending the right message to the right people at the right time. That's really the key. And then speak to people's interests, people interested in events, people who downloaded a resource, people who joined a campaign. Make sure that you are speaking to people based on what they have initiated, what they're interested in. And always in your mind say, ask yourself, how can we add value? How can we empower them? How can we connect them with other people, with the impact? How can we bring them closer to the impact? How can we be useful? All right? Now, we're going to finish up with a retention series that I often recommend to my clients, and actually I wish more nonprofits would do this. There's a great book that everybody should buy. If you're a nonprofit, you want to deal with retention. Retention rates are dismal, I should say. And there's a great book, Retention Fundraising by Roger Craver. He's literally the expert on retention fundraising. If you're not familiar with him, check out this book. But there's 7 factors that influence donor retentions. DonorPerfect obviously knows about these as well. The donor has to feel important, that they're appreciated, that the donor wants to get updates about their impact. The donor wants to have opportunities to make their views known, i.e. surveys. The donor knows what to expect with each interaction. There's a sense of consistency. The donor receives a timely thank you messages. There's a study that shows that 19% of donors will not give a second gift if they don't receive a thank you. That's why donors, they don't come back, because you don't say thank you. And then the donor feels that your organization is effective in achieving its mission, right? So the donor wants to have all these things, and the brilliant thing about email specifically and social media, you can share impact stories on social media, lots of things you can do there. But with email, I often recommend that you create an onboarding series. This will actually help your retention rates. It will keep your donors coming back. The first email says thanks. This email goes out right away, okay? It says, thank you so much. You just made a really great choice. You are changing the lives of animals. You're saving animals. You are doing this. Again, remove your organization from the narrative. And this email from PETA, I think we're all pretty clear, who the organization is. We don't have to hammer that home in the body of the email, okay? Onboarding email number 2, report back about the gift. Within the first 30 days after someone gives a gift, go send another email and say, thank you again for your gift. You are so awesome. We want to give you an update about what you've done. To date, we've been able to save X number of animals because of people like you. And also tell them what's next. Here's what else is happening. Here's what's next. You could also say, you can have an even greater impact. Thank you so much, but you can have a greater impact if you join our monthly donor program, okay? And then number 3, inviting donors to give again, right? So this one, you want to send this email, I always say within the first 60 days, if you can, you want to ask donors to give again. Most of what causes people to give, donors, is actually being asked, right? So if donors give because they love the cause and all that, but what actually makes them give in large part is just asking, asking. And you want to ask a lot, but you also want to thank. You want to thank more than you ask. But with an automated series like this, you have a couple of opportunities to ask, and if the research shows that if you ask them within the first 90 days, you will have a much greater chance of retaining that person as a donor, all right? So just in summary, number 1, craft a compelling pitch, which includes a story, creating contrast, sense of urgency, segmenting your database, your donors, your email subscribers based on their interests and the actions that they take. Drive registrations by really going to your community, people that already know about you. They're in your database. Promote those people first. And then the idea about triggered emails, sending emails when it's good for your subscribers or donors. When they sign up as a volunteer, they receive that confirmation email. That's a relevant and timely email. And then retention, thanking them, reminding them about their impact, appreciating them, and asking them to give again. All right, so that's our summary, and I'm sure we have lots of questions. So I'll let Sam take it away, or Ryan take it away.
All right, John, thank you very much. Yes, we did have a number of questions come in, but unfortunately we are right up against the 2 o'clock barrier. So what we can do is we can take those questions offline and try and answer them there, and then we can send emails out to the individuals who asked them. One thing I did want to include, we had a number of questions come in about the texting service, and if you could, you know, if there was one that we could recommend, I'm going to send out a link to GiveBee is a texting service that actually integrates with DonorPerfect. So a lot of you who are DonorPerfect users, this is perfect for you. So I just sent that out in the chat with a link to get more information there. But yes, as I said, so we're up against it. I want to again thank John. That was a fantastic presentation. I think we you know, got a lot of information out of that. And again, thanks to Ryan and Constant Contact as well for agreeing to partner with us. And yes, this did break the record for our most attended webinar. So, so that's some good news there. Yeah, so we're going to wrap up now. Again, John and Ryan, thank you guys.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Yeah, and again, thanks to everyone for attending today, and have a good rest of your afternoon.